everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kat, and for today I thought it would be fun to do a get ready with me where I talk to you guys some about the changes that I was making to my face as well as what I actually did for changes. And I also thought this would be a great way for me to showcase the new Hela palette that is a collaboration between Oden's Eye and Angelica Nyquist. And so you guys have been asking for that, so I'm going to show this bad boy off to you guys as we do the eye look. And so before we jump into story time, let's go ahead and take a look at this palette. It is beautiful. For all my green and grungy lovers out there, just all gorgeous colors. And we will definitely go ahead and swatch the shimmers real quick because at a minimum, I like to know what I am getting into with shimmers. So we have a beautiful kind of a limey, leaning more to the yellowish side shimmer. Not a duo or multi-chrome, just a straight kind of limey yellow shimmer. Then we have a deeper shimmer that is a little bit more on the lime green side rather than the lime yellow, but still within that same kind of lime color family on there. And then the darkest of the green shimmers is this guy right here. Also very, very nice. They're all a decent level of opacity so far. Like, I would say that this is the sheerest, but that's also probably just because it's the lightest of the three. But it's definitely a solid amount of opacity just right off the bat. So you're probably not gonna have to do a ton of building up on those to reach a solid level of pigment. Then we have kind of a champagne-y rosy pink. Okay, that's a little bit more on the beigey side than I thought it was gonna be from what it looked like in the palette. Definitely far more skin toned than I was expecting, because when you look at it in the palette, you think it's gonna be a little bit more pinkish than what it ends up being. Then we have the bottom row, which is where I think we're gonna get into some of the shifty shades. This guy that looks like an iridescent, definitely at a minimum is a duochrome. Oh my god, see, this is what I mean. This is like the exact same color as my skin tone, so I was about to swatch right over it. We're gonna try and fix that, go right here. All right, so this guy, I am seeing orange, like an orangey copper to a gold to a green as the three primary shades. I'm gonna build it up just a little bit more so that it can really pick up in the camera. So this is the one that we're looking at on here. So you can kind of see already that peachish orange with a little bit of the yellow as I come in close. And then the greenish kind of up at the top there a little bit, but primarily between the copper and the yellow with just a little bit of that green as a finish on there. And then don't mind this guy that half got coated with that. All right, I cleaned that guy up and fixed it so we don't get confused with the last two swatches. All right, then we have two very, very deep shades. Oh my god, I almost did it again. God, these are blending right into my skin. All right, look at this guy. Okay, very typical red base to this one. Kind of a cranberry base to it. And then it has blue, purple, and ever so slight a little bit of green as the sparkles shift on top. So there you can really see that kind of cranberry base to it. And then as I shift it, you can see kind of purple to blue. And that blue almost kind of gets a little bit silvery-ish green in nature as that final finish, but primarily between the blue and the purple with the very solid cranberry base. And then the last shade is a very deep shade. This definitely has a black base to it, and upon initial glance, it looked just like silver on top. But I think it might be silver and ever so slight a little bit of green in there, which gives it a very grungy kind of feel. So there you can see that, definitely that nice black base with just ever so slight a kind of silvery to green sparkle on top. But that is all of the shimmers that we have that we'll be working with for this palette. So I feel like as we go through the story time, I am probably going to be primarily sticking with, I really like the idea of using more of the like greens and then deepening it up with the black on there, so it's almost kind of like a neon greenish yellow to black. So I kind of like that idea of like almost like I'm channeling Venom or something, I don't know. So I think that's the eye look that we're gonna go with, but I typically start with my face because that's also one of the ways that I am able to judge a palette, is if there's any fallout, and if it ruins my face and I have to do it over, we know it's not good. But thankfully Oden's eye has yet to do me dirty on that, and so we're gonna knock right into the face first. So as we go through, I will very briefly mention what I am using so that you guys know, but we're gonna primarily be sticking with the Storytime. So to kick it off, the primer that I'm gonna use is the Milk Hydro Primer. Just got a brand new one. This is my third one of these. It's by far my favorite primer, and I usually just go with like a pump and a half on my face, which is more than enough. We'll see if we'll be able to cover up that sunburn that I got on my forehead and my nose. So the first thing that I had done to my face that I feel like is the most noticeable is that I got my brows microbladed, and I've had a ton of people commenting on how much they like my brows since I've had them done. And so I figured I would share that process with you guys of what that looked like and my thoughts on it, how it went and everything, because I feel like it was by far worth every penny, because my brows have always been one of those things that I struggled the most with, just trying to create like a good shape to it. The shadow primer that I'm using is also from Milk, and that is also the Hydro Grip Primer, just the eyeshadow one. It was fairly expensive, and I did have to go twice, because you go the first time and then like after it's all healed, you go a second time to get a touch-up, because since it is tattooing essentially on your eyes or on your eyebrows, you have to go back just to make sure that there's not any spots that they missed, because it's very, very specific how they're doing it on there, and so they want to make sure that they didn't miss any spots as you go, because like especially if you're someone that bleeds, then you can potentially miss a lot of spots because you can't necessarily see it. And so that's always why they have you come back, and also why they recommend that you don't have things like blood thinners like aspirin or whatever else, and that you don't drink caffeine, because caffeine is also a blood thinner. So like coffee, energy drinks, anything like that, they recommend not having that the day of, just so that that way you're not getting extra bloody on there. For my foundation, I am going with Fenty Beauty. You can see this guy's almost empty. I do have a replacement of it, and I'm probably gonna pick up one more because they discontinued it. And so I think there's like 2 sites left that I've found where I can get it. And so I'm gonna grab it while I still can. Mine's in the shade 185. This is the Pro Filter Hydrating Foundation, and I absolutely love it. Fenty by far does the best job of like color matching to skin tones, I feel like, because they have like absolutely everything. And so I love all of their foundations. The only one that I don't use is the powder one, because I have very dry skin in many spots, and so I try to use the hydrating ones instead so that my skin doesn't look like it's peeling. So for the first appointment that I did, it took about 3 hours, and that is mainly because the first like hour to hour and a half at a minimum was taken up by her like mapping out my brows. And so for that, she was using kind of the same stuff that you would use for threading your eyebrows, like that string, but then she would essentially just have like a little bit of chalk on there and then map it out with lines so that you would know. If you've ever seen that one TikTok filter that has like the lines everywhere, it's a similar thing, just that she maps it out herself rather than like having an image overlay or whatever. And then she like goes back and forth between mapping everything and then checking to make sure that it was the kind of shape that I was wanting, because I did want to keep a little bit of the arch that I have in my brows. I didn't just want them to be like straight across and then down. Like I wanted it to keep the little bit of a flare up that I have and then point down. And so I thought she did a really, really amazing job with getting the exact shape that I was hoping for. And at the particular place that I went to, she had 2 different variations that that she offered. And the one that I got was the ombre style, which is much more like filled in, just not quite as much up front, but really creates that shape and then fills it in so that it gives more of that kind of makeup look to it. Whereas the other one that she offered was the hairline version, which is where they actually draw like legitimate hairs. And when that one fades, it looks very, very natural. And so if you were just wanting to have a little bit more of your brows filled in, but you don't want this like very much insta brow, you can get the hairline one, and that one turns out very, very nice and natural. Mine look like I just have them permanently drawn in, which is perfect for me. Because my brows were always the thing that I hated the most having to do. All right, that filled in my forehead lovely. So then for concealer, I'm gonna be using the NARS Radiant Concealer, which is this guy right here. So for that first session that costs about $350 roughly, the second half of it is her tattooing the brows on. She does use, or the girl that did mine, she used numbing agent on my eyebrows, and so of all of the tattoos that I have, this was by far the least painful one that I have ever gotten, because I am very much so used to not being able to use numbing agent for tattoos, because again, they highly recommend that you don't for normal tattoos, because it's another thing where it kind of creates a little bit of a problem for them to be able to see minute details as they're tattooing, and so usually it causes them to miss spots. And so they don't recommend that you use numbing agent for actual tattoos, like the numbing gels and things. And so I was very pleasantly surprised that we were able to use that for this. And so it was not painful at all. The only thing that I will say about it is that when she was tattooing these portions right up front here, it makes you feel like you have to sneeze so badly, because it's like right up against like the nerves on your nose. And so I like the whole time was like having to hold my nose, because I was just like, don't sneeze, don't sneeze, like don't mess her up. And so it was, oh my gosh, that was the worst part for me, because I was just like, oh God, it tickled so bad. It was rough. But I mean, definitely worth it in the end, but oh gosh, it was bad. At the end of the day, the only thing really now that I have to do for my brows is when I go a little heavy-handed with my foundation, I do have to fill it in just ever so slightly to make up for that. And then I like to just ever so slightly exaggerate the lines a little bit more up front, just to kind of darken it a little bit more, so you can kind of see that difference on there. And then just make sure that I'm pulling it down at the corners, because again, I do have a tendency to kind of cover it up a little bit when I use my foundation. And so that's the only thing that I really fill in now, but it's pretty much just staying within the lines at this point, which is so much easier than me having to attempt to map things out myself like I used to have to do with my brows, because I was definitely not good at that at all. And so this just makes it so much easier for me to be able to do it and have everything look really nice. So there's my brows now, as opposed to the monstrosities that they were before, because I am not skilled at attempting to create my own brows. The healing process also roughly took the same amount of time that most tattoos take for me, where the initial like scabbing and peeling that happens was roughly 10 days. For my bronzer that I'm going to use, I use my Lethal Cosmetics palette, and so this is my bronzer slash contour. I like that it has a little bit more of a gray tone. And then for blush, I'm going to probably go in with this more pinkish one. And so for those of you that have not gotten tattoos before, usually the way that they work is that for the first like day or two after you get it, the color is very, very vibrant, and it is a little bit painful when you move it. So like moving my eyebrows around, I was like, don't touch them. Like you never want to touch your tattoo aside from when you're actually cleaning it. And with the eyebrows, it was the exact same thing. Like don't touch it unless you are cleaning it, because that can actually really mess it up pretty badly. And so you want to avoid that. Like, especially when it's healing, it'll itch and you don't want to touch that. That was the only thing really, but here's a few pictures throughout the process of healing that I went through. You'll notice some of the scabbing on there and the peeling, because the deeper shade essentially peels off the same as a scab. The only difference between a regular tattoo and the microblading is that the type of ink that they used for the microblading is different from regular tattoo ink, because none of my other tattoos when they healed faded at all. Whereas with the eyebrows, they definitely faded a significant amount. Like I would say at least 40% lighter than what they were when I first got them. And so like that first image that you can see there of like when I first got it done compared to the shade that my eyebrows are now, it was I was like, oh my God. And so a lot of people freak out when they first see it because they're like, this is so much darker than what I asked for. And if you just give it like the 10 to 14 days for it to heal, it will lighten up to the shade that you were wanting. It just does in fact take a minute for it to heal. And the healing process, especially since it's on your face, is not a fun one to go through because you're just like, oh God, it's just peeling everywhere. And so after you go through the process the first time, once everything is all healed up, roughly a month later, you'll go back and then they do a touch-up so that way, in case there were any sections that got missed, they're able to fix it and fill it in. And so it's definitely much, much faster for that second appointment. And it was also significantly less expensive. I think it was like $150-ish when I went back that second time. And so, you know, the whole thing together was about $450, I think. And it does last like 3-ish years depending on your skin type. And so if you are someone where it doesn't fade quickly, it can last longer than that. And if you are someone where it does fade quickly, maybe 2 years instead of 3, but well worth it, absolutely. Like I love it. And especially if you are someone that has a YouTube channel and you don't like to take the time to do your brows, it's perfect to get it done. And so I think it's absolutely worth it. I love them. They look amazing to me. And so I will keep them forever, and as long as I can keep doing it, I will. The only thing that you have to kind of keep in mind is that like as your skin gets older, it's the same thing as like with regular tattoos. It might not hold the ink as well, and it might be more difficult to get the tension needed to create the shape. And so those are the only things to kind of keep in mind. But other than that, I mean, it's awesome. So I absolutely love how it turned out, but I would love to know what you guys think. Do you also like it? I know a bunch of you have already told me how much you like it, and so for those of you that haven't said anything yet, what are your thoughts? Would you ever want to get it done? To finish up the face before we launch into the eyes, I'm going to use my Jaclyn Hill highlighter for today. This is just a very nice kind of light gold champagne shade, and I think it looks nice, and so I use that when I'm just kind of wanting like an everyday kind of glow, because it's not too severe on there. Just adds kind of like a nice little sparkle on the cheeks, and that is just how I do that. I use the flat brush, and I usually only use like half of it, and then I'll just go up and then flip it over and then go over it a second time, and so this is what you end up with. But I do like kind of pulling my highlighter down a little bit more onto my cheeks, just because I think then that way it kind of really gives me a glow. So that is where I go a little bit extreme, but we're gonna jump into the eye look next while I talk about the other thing that I had done, which was an absolute disaster. So that's gonna be a super fun story as we create this eye look. All right, so the two matte shades that I'm gonna primarily use for this look are going to be this guy right here, and then this green right here to deepen it up. So it's gonna be kind of half and half, and I'll do the same thing on the upper and lower lid. And then we're gonna go bonkers with all of the different metallics. And then I think I might end up using the multi-chrome on the inner portion of the lid, not quite sure yet, but we'll see how it goes with all of the other shades, but definitely gonna use a ton of the shimmers. So the first shade up was very, very powdery in the pan, so just kind of keep that in mind. It's gonna fly everywhere. So the second thing that I had done was that I was wanting to get fillers for my face, specifically for my smile lines, just because that is something that I personally have always been kind of self-conscious about, because even growing up, I've always had fairly severe smile lines, and so I feel like that's like the main thing where if I could choose something to make myself look a little bit younger, I would stick with the smile lines. But for the most part, everything else on my face I like, and so I don't mind anything else, but that in particular was something that always kind of bothered me. And so I was wanting to go and get filler because I had heard that was a great way to go, that they could just kind of apply a little bit of filler and then it just ever so slightly pulls up the face so you can see. I mean, now that I'm wearing concealer, it's like a little more difficult, but you can kind of see how that just ever so slightly like makes my face look a little bit younger, I guess. Or a little bit more like, taut, I guess. And so I had gone to a place that was recommended to me and had a good number of 5-star ratings. And so I was like, okay, this sounds like a pretty good place to go to. And since the recommendation for the microblading had turned out so well, I was like, okay, I will give this place a go. And it did not go according to plan, to say the least. The first thing that I thought was interesting was that when I went in, I had essentially only scheduled an appointment for a consultation because I was like, I don't know anything about like what the correct type of filler would be, how I want to get that done, like where's the best placement for it, how is my skin gonna react to everything. And so I was only going for them to just kind of take a look and then be like, okay, cool, you know, we can schedule an actual appointment if I like how it sounds. And so that was what I was going for. But as it turned out, while I was there, I ended up getting the procedure done. And I was just like, okay, that was fast. And then later on, like I was doing some research on it and people were like, yeah, you're supposed to like go and get patch tests first to make sure that you're not like allergic to anything. And so I was like, oh, they did not do that with me at all. And the appointment went terribly because I ended up passing out as she was working on the first side. And so we never even got to do the second side. And so on the one hand, I was like, okay, cool. This is going to be a really easy way for me to tell exactly how much of a difference it has made. And then I'll just come back in like a week to get the other side done so that I don't look like all lopsided or whatever. And fun fact, no one could tell which side I had done, including myself. And I'm like overly critical when I look in the mirror. And I was just like, was it this side? Was it this side? You can't tell. And so that kind of was a little bit disheartening for me because I was just like, I just spent a boatload of money for this injection where you can't even tell that I had anything done. And so I was super bitter about that because the injection cost over $600 so per syringe it costs over $600. And I was just like, oh my God, that is so much money to spend and no one can even tell which side of my face I had done. And because the experience was so bad with me passing out and everything, which I also found to be very, very weird because considering the fact that I have no problem with getting tattoos, no problem with like having my face microbladed, like I thought it was really weird that to get an injection I would have such a bad reaction. But and if you were someone that doesn't want to hear details, skip forward about a minute because I'm gonna real quick say what it felt like. So when they did the needle, because it was on this side, fun fact in case you were curious, she did like 4 different injections along here, like starting up top here and then going down to roughly about here. And you could feel the silicone or whatever the crap it was that was in there. I don't think it was silicone, but whatever. You could feel it going in and the needle was not comfortable at all. And it did not feel great. And it was really weird because they also had numbed my face before doing this. And you couldn't tell that they numbed it because it was not a fun time. And so I ended up just deciding not to go back to get the other side done because to me it was just like, it's not worth the money given that you can't even tell what they did on the one side. And with how painful it ended up being, I was like, I'm not gonna do this again. And so that kind of really turned me off to getting injectables done. which is unfortunate because they also have a lot of really good preventative measures. If like some of the ingredients include like collagen and things like that, it can help to prevent the slacking of your skin on your face. And so I was pretty bummed that it didn't work. I don't think that I would be like against doing something like a facelift or whatever in the future, like having something maybe over here where it just lifts up the face ever so slightly, but probably gonna hold off for a little while just until like the sourness of that appointment goes away. Like it took me like a solid 15 minutes to recover from it. It was that bad, and I was just like drenched in sweat, had no idea where I was, and it was not a good time. And I also really didn't appreciate the fact that like I could hear them kind of laughing and making fun of me outside of my room. And so I thought that that was just kind of like added to the negativity of that appointment, because like I'm so sorry that my body had like a fight or flight response that caused me to pass out. That's not something that I had any control over. And so I didn't really think that it was nice of them to be making fun of me where I could hear it, especially because it was like right outside the door where she was just telling like whatever other nurses were walking by, yeah, my patient passed out, like she was just splayed out, so like I couldn't finish the procedure or whatever, it was annoying. And I'm just like, so sorry that I ruined your day, I guess. I mean, you're still getting money out of me, so you know, whatever. But yeah, it just completely soured the entire appointment to me, because I was just like, that's so rude. Why would you do that, you know? All right, I'm gonna go into the sparkles next to finish this up. And yeah, I mean, to say the least, I have no intentions of going back to that specific clinic ever again, because that just really like soured my opinion of it, because it's just like, why would you make fun of someone for that, you know? And then when they came back in the room, they were trying to be like all nice about it and like, oh, are you okay? Do you want any snacks or whatever? And like, we'll make sure you're okay. And it was already weird that like she was willing to leave the room, because normally if you have someone that passes out, you don't want to leave them alone, especially when they're clearly still recovering. And like she even commented like right before she left, she was like, you're still looking like real pale and like sweaty. Are you gonna be okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. As if me being the person that was just passed out has any kind of way of judging whether I'm gonna be okay or not. This is the same thing as like asking someone that's concussed, hey, are you okay? Sure, they're gonna say okay. Like, you don't ask the person that was just unconscious. But yeah, that really just kind of turned me off to the whole thing. So I was like, okay, noted. And so if I do ever decide to get filler again in the future, which who knows really at this point, I will definitely be going to a different clinic. And I already did some more research on like other plastic surgeon places in the Tucson area, and there are a few others that are very highly rated, and they specifically say on their websites that like they will not do a procedure the same day that they do a consultation. Like, you have to take into account that they will do like patch tests first to make sure you're not gonna have like an adverse reaction or anything like that. And so already coming across as far more reputable to me, in my opinion. So maybe I'll consider it in the future. I don't think I'm looking too old, but yeah, my smile lines just for whatever reason have always been something that kind of like bugged me. I'm just like I don't mind when I'm actually smiling for them to show up, but when I'm just sitting here existing, I would like for them to disappear. But as long as I'm able to hide that with just makeup and whatever else, it's not that big of a deal to me. And the brows turned out so well that I was just kind of like, whatever, I'll just deal with the other stuff, because like the rest of my face turned out like really nice with the brows. So yeah, but I would love it if any of you guys have any tips on how to make like getting filler a better process. If there's anyone out there that has done it before, if you guys have had similar experiences, or Like if you had better ones, like what should that appointment actually look like? Because I feel like it didn't go the way it should have for me. Like I definitely feel like something was amiss. So I would love to know what the correct appointment at those types of offices is supposed to look like. All right, I am going to tightline and do my mascara off camera, and so for those I'm using a mixture of my LA Girl Shockwave liner in Gotcha and the Gel Glide liner also from LA Girl, and this is in Limelight. So a little bit of a lighter one for the front half and then deeper for the back half. I do like to mix my liners up on there just to give it a little bit more of an ombre if that's what I was going for. For the bottom mascara, I'm gonna use the Mile High Club Wonder Beauty mascara just because I prefer that style of brush for the under eye. And then on the upper lashes, I'm gonna use the Essence I Need a Miracle. So clearly I go for drugstore when it comes to these types of products because there's no reason to spend a poop ton of money when you can get really good products for like $5. So I'm gonna do this real quick and then we will come back and I will fill in just that inner speck with the multi-chrome and then do my lips and then we're all done. All right, and we're back with my mascara and everything on. I was almost debating doing like a black liner, but I feel like I wasn't wanting to go too smoky with it. Like I like that you can still very clearly see that it's more of like a dark green rather than a black. And so I think that that turned out much nicer just because I wasn't wanting to go super duper smoky. And then just that tiny bit of the multi-chrome in the inner corner here. Yeah, I think that looks real nice. Almost like just a tiny pop of like orangish peach on there. I think it's pretty. I am going to do my lips though real quick while we discuss my final thoughts. Like I really like how the eye look turned out. I think it's super pretty. I mean, I like Oden's Eyes formula. I think they do a really good job. I mean, you guys saw I had to brush away fallout once and it was the tiniest bit. For my lips today, I was using from Copacetic Cosmetics their lip gloss in Picture Day. That is this guy right here. I really like their gloss formula. It's nice, just adds like a tiny tint of color on there without going like too crazy, and so I think it looks nice. I am more of a glossy gal. I don't do lipsticks or like liquid lips too much, and so mainly glosses for me, but it's ironic considering that I have a lip product collection that is absurdly large for someone that only goes for glosses. But that was everything for today, so I would love to know what you guys think of everything. What do you think of the eye look, the swatches, the brows versus getting filler? What are your guys' thoughts? For anyone that has not gotten microblading done and you were thinking about it, I hope that I gave you guys something to think about a little bit more on whether it's a good idea or not. For the filler, I can't help out too much. I had a horrible experience, and so maybe sometime in the future I'll have a better idea of what a good experience looks like, but for right now, it is what it is. But give me a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you did not, as we always do here. And if you made it to the end of the video and you have not yet subscribed, I would highly recommend subscribing. I do still have my 1,000 subscriber giveaway going on as of right now. And so definitely make sure that if you haven't checked out my video that was posted this past Sunday, go check it out. It is a speed review video. It has all kinds of awesome stuff on there, and enter the giveaway if you haven't already. And so if you haven't subscribed yet, I would highly recommend so you can join that particular giveaway. And other than that, you guys just go have a good one.